another flashback scene here. We're in Boley, Oklahoma, 1919, at the Boley Community Baptist Church. And this is where we get the scene of Lester's wife passing away. Dr. Sylvester's wife has passed. He is left with his surviving children. Very sad scene, man. Very sad scene. The conversation with him and the pastor was a little typical. But I felt like it was important, though. I felt like it was important to show what kind of mental state Sylvester was entering his next step in. There's always a build to breaking a righteous man. There's always a long, drawn-out saga to breaking the will of a righteous man, and you're witnessing it here in these flashbacks for Lester.
I think it was one of those things where you don't need the run-of-the-mill stereotypical speech, and that's exactly what the pastor gave him.
Yeah.
It's like, no, that's not going to suffice. It never does. You literally have to reach out to each person different.
Yeah,
you do. You can't give them that speech, and that speech is going to lead someone that's troubled seeking counsel elsewhere, and that's what Sylvester wound up doing.
And that's what he ends up doing. He decides that Boley is no longer the place for him and his children, so he decides to go where? Tulsa, Oklahoma. Tulsa, Oklahoma, 1921. We get another jump to that scene there where, we're laying in the rubble with Lester and his children, and Miss Knightsdale is already transformed. Another point that that stuck out to me about this panel was actually this was why I like this scene. This one in combination with the metamorphosis scene for Miss Knightsdale, right? So imagine seeing that, right?
Right.
And so his explanation is, it was the darkest moment of my life. I had already lost my wife. I brought my kids to this place. I brought my kids to Black Wall Street. I'm sure that was a place where he thought that he was going to be able to thrive and start anew with his family. And here he are. As soon as he gets here, it's firebombed. As soon as he arrives in Tulsa, Oklahoma, this magical place that he's heard about from a few miles over in Boley, he finally makes it there with his children, and it's destroyed. And in that moment that he's realizing where he's at, what he deems to be a messenger from God comes to his rescue.
Yes.
The reason why I thought that was interesting is because knowing what we know about Adro and how she is drawn to the most extreme of sorrow and pain, could Knightsdale have been changed by Adro and sent to Sylvester to ultimately lead him back to Adro? Right? Because we know if Adro is Satan, right? We know Satan puts certain paths or certain obstacles in your path to try and to throw you off, right? At least that's the story.
Right.
So if Adro is Satan and Knightsdale had her transformation at the most opportune time, when Lester is at his most vulnerable, and she does acknowledge that Lester is important to her in the story so far, could that have been a long play?
Absolutely. I think when you look at any type of deity and everything like that, I tell people all the time, if there's a head, there's a tail. You know what I'm saying? If you look at it one, somebody else can look at it a different way. So if we got an ultimate good that has a disciple, you gotta say to yourself, logically speaking, then the ultimate bad has a disciple. The ultimate good can look at their disciple and say, okay, I see you right now. I'm gonna come holler at you 10 years later. You be ready 10 years from now. Same thing with the bad God. Okay, I see you, but you're not gonna be ready for 10 years, but I gotta protect you for 10 years. So I'm gonna send an emissary to make sure you good, nurture you, cultivate you and everything like that. Then we're gonna bring you to me so I can use you for what I need to use you for. Yeah.
Yeah. What it feels like, and the reason why that stuck out to me is because I see similarities between Berg, Knightsdale, and Sylvester, right?
Right.
here's the one thing that stands out between all three of them. All three of them experienced extreme pain that they let themselves fall into, which turned to hate, which end up making them turn Juno, right? Or a different variation of Juno.
Right.
Sylvester, different variation of himself is what he turned into.
Right.
Berg, different variation of himself is what he turned into.
Right.
Knightsdale turned into a bird. At first, in the first volume, I felt like they did that purposely because they killed that bird in the office. But now seeing how it actually happened, Knightsdale turned into a bird, and not just any bird. That bird resembles a raven.
Quote the raven,
which is representative of what? What are ravens representative of? Thank you.
I mean, and watch this. And what is a bird? A messenger?
A messenger.
I mean, if nothing else, I think you and I can both agree that this book has so many metaphors in it.
Yes.
Throughout all 10 issues. You can find metaphors, symbolic meanings all over the place.
Yeah.
All over the place. So it's like one of the things where it's like, if we had to look at what was Nightingale's job, her job was to nurture him. And she nurtured Sylvester.
Make sure he survives.
Right. We can sit back and say, well, there was a romantic interest. I can't say I never got the fact that there was a romantic interest. What I can say is I got the impression that there was a loving relationship there. There was a caring relationship there. And if
there was history.
Right. If he was on the brink of death and she was the one that saved him and has been working with him for the longest time, there's gonna be some type of love there. Wow, it's gonna be some type of relationship there. So I looked at it not from where you looked at it from, but I'm able to look at it through that lens based off of what you just said.
I'm trying to put these pieces together, man. See where we're going, because Knightsdale in her Juno form is like we said, she's caring for Lester, trying to keep him alive. She's feeding him. She done found a deer to slaughter for him, put a little deer meat in his mouth. Hope he likes venison. From the distance, though, uncooked. It looks like we have some uncooked. Yeah, that's nuts. That is nuts. Venison uncooked is wild. But from the distance, we get two new characters. One named Iris, seems to be of Native American descent, and another Black woman, a character who I think is safe to assume from their conversation is a member of the Sangerye family. We don't find out exactly who just yet, but they're watching from the distance and they're very surprised in what they see from this Juno. Its behavior, the way it's moving, the way it's caring for Walter. It's not typical to what they've seen. Now, something to point out here: Iris tells the other, Maetta's great niece, whatever her name may be at this point, that she may not have the sight like her Maetta. I may not have the sight like her, but I can see. And she begins to describe what she sees on Juno in general and what she doesn't see on this one. Further enforcing the idea that how you become infected determines what kind of Juno you will actually end up being. Right.
You touched on the characters. I'm just gonna say this. Shout out to the fact that they damn near included every ethnic group in here and it don't feel forced. Shout out to the fact that they got women playing prominent roles in this book and it don't feel forced.
Yeah. Or like overly cartoonish in the way that they're trying to spread the message, or
writers, this is how you write. This is how you write. This is how you how you do a story about inclusion, and don't make it a story about inclusion. But we still see it's an inclusive story.
Right. It's inclusive without having the whole exclusivity as the main point of the story.
Yes. Come on, somebody. Yeah.
Exclusive are inclusive by way of circumstance, not by way of force.
Right.
Okay, so we are somewhere in between the Osage Nation in northern Oklahoma and the Cherokee Nation. Right, we are on a reservation where Lester is being treated. He's being, brought back to health, probably getting some better food than raw bloody deer meat. They're trying to get him back to health. We do get another name drop from this anonymous Sangerye family member about Uncle Enoch, wishing that he was here to try to work through this new situation that they have. They also brought back Knightsdale as well. They have her sitting up in a barn. They're patrolling her, but it looks like they're trying to help her. Whoever their healer is there at the reservation has mixed up a concoction to try and help Knightsdale. She drinks it, and it does revert her back to her form. If you catch the very end of this conversation between Iris and the other lady, it's a age-old conversation that I don't even know if we're gonna have time tonight to fully flesh out. But the idea, what she says is, folks like her, like us, meaning Black women or other women of color, right? They don't usually become, and then Iris stops her and says, perhaps we do become something. You know what this reminded me of? The idea of whether or not Black people can be racist. And so you
can't ask me that question because I'm not gonna give you the popular answer.
Well, okay, you probably not. And I feel like I have a if I think I know where you're going with it, I know I have an opposing viewpoint, but it's not from the place that I think is commonly placed at.
What's the guy that I rock with? Dadgum. They YouTubers, they fellow YouTubers.
Abba and Preach?
Alvin Preach.
Yeah, I don't like to hear them talk about race, boy. I do not. But go ahead.
I'll give you a story. If it's all about power, I gotta be in power, right? Because I've heard that, and I'm not gonna say I agree or disagree with it. What I can tell you is this: here in Tallahassee, when I first got here, we were playing at Tom Brown Park basketball. 10 of us, a few of us on the side and everything like that. I'm not a great basketball player. I'm not finna make it rain from outside. I can't even tell you I'm not finna tell you I'm finna get you wet from mid-range. I got you a layup. Great defense. Well, we had, like I said, 10 of us out there. One white dude. White dude was on their opposing team. So I ain't got no dog in this fight. But the white dude is nice. He got game. And he came out there looking like a typical white dude. A nerd. Gray socks, white shoes. You like, what is you doing? And the brothers was talking trash. One brother started talking trash to him because he looked like a straight nerd. Then the brother kept talking trash to him because he thought he couldn't hoop. Then the brother was like, well, let me talk to see if I can get you out your game. Then it went from, let me just talk to see if I can bully you into a fight because the numbers are clearly in my favor. Like he was saying stuff to this dude that he wouldn't say if he was in the dude's neighborhood. And so the dude, he's a man, young man. I'm a Marine. I'm a Marine Corps veteran. That pledge that I took to protect this country against all enemies, foreign and domestic, I never said who I was protecting. I said this country. The dude picked a fight with him. Called him a C-word, everything. Snapped on him. And the dude was looking around like he had help. The brother was. And I said, no, we're not finna do that. He said, what? I said, you talking to him because you think he by himself. I said, that's why you talking to him like that. I said, you started this. I said, now I'm gonna tell you what's gonna wind up happening. If you swing on him and he swing back, any of your boys get involved, I'm doing each and every last one of y'all on sight. I said, you're gonna learn to get that man the respect that you want. He was being bullied. Well, what is racism? That's the oldest form of bullying that I know of. And he was being bullied because of what? His skin color. So now, watch this. If I had this conversation with people like, well, man, The brother wasn't being a racist, he was being a bigot.
Do you think that there's a difference?
If the whole premise is based on being in a position of power at that particular playground park on that particular day, that was systemic racism. That white dude at that particular moment in time. Watch this. At that particular moment in time, I'm not talking about historically. I'm saying at that particular moment in time, there was that 10, 15-minute difference in his life, in my life, in the life of the brother who targeted him based on his skin complexion. You didn't target him for any other reason. You didn't target him because he couldn't hoop, because clearly he could. You didn't target him because of his clothes. Because, hell, it was brothers out there. It's brothers that go to the basketball court, look like who done it and what for. And nobody ever talks about them like that. But for that brief 10, 15 minutes, if I don't say anything, or if I sign up with the brothers, that white dude getting his ass whooped. He getting his ass whooped in much the same way me and you getting our ass whooped in their neighborhood. And that ass whooping is going to be brutal. It's going to be violent. It's going to be racially motivated. For that brief 10, 15 minutes, I'm not talking about, of our country. Because what me and you go through, they'll never go through that. You feel what I'm saying? Me and you, they not suffering from PTSD like me and you are. They not. But for that 10, 15 minute time frame, there were those of us, because we were in a position of power, because we outnumbered them. For that brief 10, 15 minute time frame, there were those of us that were prepared to do to him what's been historically done to us in this country. Okay. What was the difference?
So,
aside, like I said, historically speaking, Marcus, there is no comparison.
No. I don't even have to. I don't have to go that deep on it to kind of get my point across, I guess, because I agree on most of what you're saying. I guess the stickler for me is when I'm a words guy, right? So definitions mean something to me. Mm-hmm. When we talk about bigotry, when we talk about prejudice, when we talk about racial animosity, when we talk about racism, there's nuance between all of those things, right? I am 100% on board with the idea that Black people can hold a racist view. They can have a bigoted attitude towards that. We've seen it. We know that exists. And to boil down what we're talking about when you say, can Black folks be racist, down to whether or not you think that there's Black people out there that hate other white people, that I feel like it's a bit reductionary. Like we're reducing it down a little bit too much, because racism is not something that can be reduced to an anecdotal level. Racism is not something that can be boiled down to an individual experience. Racism is what you said when you were given your explanation. It's systemic. Right? Even though the white boy was outnumbered, right? And in that moment, on that basketball court, he was the minority at that point, right? The dynamics had changed for him. So he got a taste of that reality from the other way around. I can't, and I also can't speak to the intentions or the heart of the dude that was attacking him, right? I have to take it at face value for what you're telling me, right? That's bigoted, that's prejudice, that's blind ignorance. The problem is that that is all we acknowledge when we talk about racism, is the ignorant side of it. The blind, I hate you because of your skin color. We don't talk about the fact how it takes control of entire systems for you to enact racism. It takes the ability to affect others' outcomes, because as much as bad as you felt for that white boy in that moment, right? When that was happening to him at that basketball court, that reality that he felt, just by way of what social class he belongs to in this country, he will have an opportunity to enact that same amount, not to say that he wants to, not to say that he's going to, not to say that he's going to use it, but he will have the opportunity. He will have the access to enact that same level of discrimination on countless amounts of Black people if he so chooses.
You absolutely right. I don't disagree with that. So let me say it like this. I don't disagree with anything that you say. As a matter of fact, I agree. Because he, like you just, as you alluded to, because he will have the opportunity to do so. And that's where the systemic comes in, is that it's the opportunity. Yeah. As I've said to a lot of us, brother that over on Machiavelli Media, this is me. And I don't want people to think that I'm one of those people that just, I would never be a Stacey Dash. But
no. Well, I don't think that either, at all.
To a degree, we have to stop being complicit. One of the things I look at, especially when I look at, Trayvon Martin and Ahmaud Arbery, something like that happened to my children, I'm either going to handle it the way Fred Goldman would handle it, to say the least, or I'm going to handle it the way Carl Lee would handle it. You know who Carl Lee is? That's the guy that Samuel L. Jackson played in A Time to Kill.
Oh, Carl Lee. Yeah, Carl Lee. Damn, how did I forget about Carl Lee? Matthew McConaughey, Time to Kill.
I'm either doing it one of two ways. I'm either going to be Fred Goldman and haunt you for the rest of your life where you don't get any peace whatsoever, or I'm going to do what Carl Lee did. You not finna be George Zimmerman.
Yeah, no, we don't need no more of those. We don't need no more.
You not that ain't what we doing. That ain't, I'm going to jail myself. I'm straight.
I don't mean to give off the idea that like the blind ignorance that plagues other communities couldn't possibly permeate my community, right? Because that I think that's a dangerous attitude to have too. That starts to get into that idea of supremacy, of being better than one another, and I think that is problematic. But if we just talking about there has to be a difference. There has to be a difference between just blind prejudice, right? Blind ignorance over something that you don't understand or don't care to understand, and seeking to destroy or eradicate. There has to be a difference.
I'm gonna say it like this. Marcus, me and you got raised up at different points in time, but you and I both got taught the same lessons as children. If Theo don't want to play with you down the street, don't play with Theo. Come back home. Play with the people that want to play with you. You couldn't even go back home and cry because Theo didn't want to play with you. You feel what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Mom and dad would get you your own basketball, or if they couldn't afford for you to get a basketball, you had to learn how to make it do with what you had. Those are the lessons that were taught to us individually by our parents, our family as children. As we get older, and then we embrace a color. That's a whole nother conversation, because that color doesn't give you any type of identity. As you get older, you want to be friends with the Caucasian person. I ain't got to be friends with you. You don't want to be friends with me. I ain't got to be friends with you. You don't want me going to your school. My school good enough. I ain't got to go to your school. I ain't got to put no money in your pocket. If I ain't good enough to be a boss at your job, I'm not good enough to be an employee at your job. You see what I'm saying? These are all the things that we have. We have it within us right now. If somebody wants to sell an NFL football team, we have enough billionaires that look like me and you to buy the football team. Now watch this.
Okay.
Watch this. True enough, the owners might not want to sell it, but this is when me and you say, as the football players, if I ain't good enough to play for you, I'm gonna say if I ain't good enough to own a team, I ain't good enough to play with you, for you.
Yeah.
You know, at some point as a man, and this is what our parents teach us growing up. Your father, mom, family taught you, they said, Marcus, as a man, at some point in time, you're gonna have to make a stand. You're gonna have to stand for something. The people that came before you and me, before you and I, Marcus, they didn't get to live like how me and you live. They didn't get to do the YouTube stuff and like that. They didn't get the luxury of having the freedoms that you and I have. They died knowing they weren't going to be able to experience these things so that you and I could. The people that were living in the 20s, what they went through in the 20s, for me and you to have this life in 2022, they knew they would never have. They didn't die for them. They died for me and you. We keep acting like the success of the Black race is for us to be about today. No, it's about promising, securing a better tomorrow for our future, for our children. I gotta take a stand. You got the Ole Miss. That's what you want to call it, Ole Miss. Okay, cool. I'm not coming to your school. Get in how you fit in. When you start losing all that money, all that TV revenue, and everything like that, even those of you that don't like me will sit up here and say, you know what, we got to change the name of the team. We got to go to. You just did this with the Washington Commanders. It took forever, but you changed that name. So I'm just saying, you and I at some point, not me and you specifically individually, but as a race of people, we the money. Look at what they listen to our music. We play the number one. We play the number 2 and 1 sport in the world, right or wrong. Basketball and football.
Yeah,
that ain't them. They following us. Now watch this. In the NBA, if we look at it, the players are considered partners. Even if me and you are on the outside looking in, and we see how the owners and the players run the NBA, they run that as a partnership. They don't run it as, oh, we the owners and you do what we say do. No. Y'all we partners with y'all. And those dudes that own those NBA basketball teams, they benefit financially from it. They pay them players all the money they want to. Them owners ain't hurting for no money. They ain't even tripping like that. Nobody looks at them owners as being less white because of the fact that we got 15 Black coaches in the NBA? Nobody looks at those white men as being less white. You see what I'm saying? Nobody questions their whiteness. Nobody looks at them as being less white. Nobody looks at them as being sellouts to the white race. Nobody. They still look at as being white. What's the difference between the white NBA owner and the white NFL owner?
There shouldn't be a difference.
Right, now watch this. What's the difference between the Black NBA player and the Black NFL player?
If I had to put a point on it for the the NFL owner versus the NBA owner, I'd say much more NFL owners are in those Midwestern, the Southern states, as opposed to the NBA. You got a lot of coastal teams, right? So whereas that environment has a lot more social progression than the NFL, that's an old boys club.
Right, watch this. What's the difference between the Black NBA player and the Black NFL player? What's the difference?
The Black NBA player gets guaranteed money.
Now watch this. That's wild, right? Because the white dude that's the owner is literally saying, I'm gonna put this money in your pocket. But any social justice issue come up, the Black NBA player is like, oh, we can get the white NBA owner fired. That's the Black NBA player. Watch this. The Black WNBA player, her attitude is the same way. If the owner show out, we'll get the owner kicked out. But yeah.
I got you. But I knew if I started that we would be here for a while. So I really didn't want to dab my toe into it. But I'm gonna get you back on here because I feel like we got something to discuss about Abigail Preach too. But we'll talk about it.
Hey man, listen, I love talking to you, bro. Because honestly, like I said, talking to younger cats keeps me grounded. It's how I keep from feeling like, oh, I'm above everybody else. I know more than no. Listen to what the younger generation got to say.
I appreciate you hearing me out. Sure.
Yeah.